Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to plane shift and head through the gate to the distant world of Golarion once more? Yes, we're back into the world of the Pathfinder role-playing game system. I, your host and guide here, Tian Xia, am reaching out my hand as I open up the gate so we can plane shift to this distant world through the universe. Remember to, of course, tip your guide here today, like and subscribing, ringing the bell here on the YouTube side of things, as we plane shift once more to Golarion in the Pathfinder world. We're heading to Tian Xia today, to the country of Bachuan, a successor state of the Imperial Lung Wa. Well, if I'm going to be learning about it, we should investigate some of the books and information that could tell us some information about its history and its things that have been happening. Of course, there are two places for this, the Dragon Empire Gazetteer from 1st edition, and the Tian Xia World Guide from 2nd edition. If you want to dive into it, maybe even learn a few extra details. So what is Bachuan? Well, other than being a successor state of the once great Imperial Lung Wa on Tian Xia, it was also known as Penhua, and it's an autocratic state. But it is in the midst of wide-reaching reforms that's changing it. Its official ruler is Grandmother Pei. We'll talk about it. And the capital is Penji. Currently, it's got more of an autocratic council in charge, with Tian as the major language, along with some historical ones for this region. And interestingly enough, until recently, no religion. We'll talk about it. And of course, here's his flag, which we'll talk a little bit more about. Well, I guess we can talk about it. This depicts a field with a tiger chasing an imperial dragon around a yellow sun. The tiger being the people of Bachuan, the indigenous people of this region, and the dragon representing the Lung Wa, who was basically impressive to them. The emblem was chosen by Grandfather Revolution. We've mentioned Grandmother Peg. We'll talk about Grandfather Peg now with history. Now, this character here will be very important to us in later history. This Shui Jing. We'll talk about it. But we have to go back to the start of it. So, where does Bachuan come from? Well, it starts with a city-state, more than anything. Not an entire country. Just a city-state that was founded in 3089 IC. Now, I will say I'm going to be using IC today, which is the imperial calendar that's used in Tian Xia. A easy way of determining the IC versus AR, which is used in the Inner Sea region, is add 2,500 years. So, while it's 4724 current year in the Inner Sea region, it's 7224 IC. So it's just 2,500 years different. So, subtract that from this case if you want to find the dates. But I will use because we're in the region, I'm going to use the calendar for the region. But these, in that year, 3089 IC, merchants from the Empire of Yixing, basically to control a trade network for the local peoples of Zidao and others in the region, formed this small city-state. In 5580 IC, following the collapse of Yixing, it seized southern Benshu Bay region and expanded much of Yixing's former territory. Basically, the country that had founded it as a city-state collapsed, and they took it over part of it. Then we get to 6802 IC, 6802, and Imperial Lung Wa annexes Bachuan. They rename it Penhua Province, and after that, for some time, it suffered under the greedy bureaucrats, taking resources, abusing it from the Lung Wa. But Lung Wa was not to last forever. Again, I'll have to probably do a video on it at some point in time. And after only 300 years, so they probably had a lot less time under Imperial Lung Wa than some countries did, because it existed a lot longer. But at least for the 300 years that it was under there, things went okay. Well, went bad. But Lung Wa collapsed in 7106 IC. This is a little more than 100 years ago. It is now 7224, so it was not long ago. Basically, the rich bureaucrats, the ancient clergy, basically struggled to control the population. Because now Lung Wa's collapsed, each region's for itself, we're in the successor states, and at the time, Penhua had the bureaucrats left over from there, the clergy, trying to control this. In this turmoil, our character here, Grandfather Pei, basically rose to power. Grandfather Pei basically was a peasant. Peasant who became a scholar. Very humble origins. A very humble person. He began spreading his own philosophy. The Pei philosophy. The Pei philosophy is a very communistic philosophy in a lot of ways. He preached for the equal treatment of all humanoids, demand that prosperity be shared among all citizens. You can see where it's going. It's a very communistic kind of ideal that he had. And it resonated very popular with the common folk of his successor state. That was good for them. So he gathered an army of peasants, workers, downtrodden folk, and he overthrew the corrupt government and the puppet clergy in the Bachuan Revolution in 7126. Little less than 100 years ago. Becoming independent, Grandfather Pei restored Penwa to its original name, Bakushon, and had a new republic. He freed his country from the influence of Imperial Lung Wa finally, and had it come back to the old ways. But it wouldn't last. He intended to bring a new era of peace and prosperity to his country, to Bachuan. And the Pei philosophy provided, basically, it was much harder to implement than they thought. The strict philosophy opposed religion and private ownership properly, and enforced state control over the production and distribution of wealth. He basically had this group, the Sun Chamber, which was the council that worked with him, which he would lord over, and below them was the infamous Ministry of Peace and Harmony, which operated re-education camps to force the ideology on dissenters, and in the later years of this, basically instituted ideological purges to root out any who were not sufficiently zealous. Yeah, things went very autocratic, very quickly. His failure of leadership resulted in authoritarian government, suppressed religion, ideological purges, establishment of these re-education camps. He died in 7168. So, basically 62 years after he had gotten into the revolution during that time period. And granted, 62 years after the fall and getting his influence. Nearly 42 years after the revolution. His widow, Puye Men, who would become known as Grandmother Pei, basically to honor the other one, basically took over. The problem with her was her indoctrination at the re-education camps. She had been through the re-education camps. And basically she became even more of a zealot than her late husband. So when it came to the country, she implemented even harsher version of the zeal that was deep in Bakugan's reality. So basically, once Grandfather Pei died and Grandmother Pei took over, it became even more harsh and authoritarian. She had to implement the Pei philosophy. It had to become deep in there. Grandmother Pei's rise to power was not pleasant. Yeah. She'd married Grandfather Pei when she was only 16. And was eventually in the Sun Chamber. She was 29 when she ascended to the chairmanship of the Sun Chamber. Above a lot of other politicians. So, she wasn't content with just her own republic. She sought to bring Pei philosophy to beyond Bakushan's borders. So she began making aggressive overtures towards her southern neighbor, Hwanga. Conflict was bloodyless at the very least, because Bakushan's fortunes and reputation continued to sink and deepened in isolation. The ever-increasing excess of the government, counter-revolutionaries, and anarchists quietly established themselves amongst the populace because of that excess. Especially in Penja, the capital city, or Paizo. Rumors in Hanwat's suggested that Bakushan's agents had kidnapped Tian Huans and turned them into undead assassins. But the government denied such conspiracies, but it means there was a lot of rumors. By 7210, 14 years ago, Akachan's failures had accelerated. He couldn't produce enough food to help its people. And many began fleeing the nation in large numbers, more than its border guards could control. Monsters overran the lands as the ruling Sun Chamber could no longer send the funds to control them. Grandmother Pei became more absent from meetings, bringing concern about her health. Sure, I mean, she had been very young when she took control, 29, but now she was in her 70s. She was 71 at this age. She's still alive, technically, 85. We'll talk about it in a second. But yeah, but her grip on the nation was slipping away. In this power vacuum, the Sun Chamber split into 6 competing factions. And tensions built into the unexpected rival, this woman here, Shui Jing, from Poling in 72-15, 9 years ago. She was an oracle, a Tianxun woman, but she didn't reveal her oracular powers. She claimed to be a mathematician, and possessed considerable social charm, and quickly gained the favor in the Pei. She united the factions long enough to propose a series of policy reforms that would change the shape of Bachuan. There was an end to the enforcement and unofficial proselytizing of the Pei philosophy. Pei philosophy would still be important to the ideas of the country, but no longer would it be enforced or shoved in people's faces. They divided the country into 6 municipalities, 1 for each of the Sun Council's factions. They also reformed property ownership laws that could encourage private ownerships in foreign investment, with a decade of minimal taxations on profits. So basically it's like, we want to get some people in here to bring money in here, and to have a minimum profit for a decade, join us. Investors loved this. It was very swift. The capital of Paizo overflowed with business opportunities and spread into the surrounding municipalities. Among them, of course, was the sorceress Hao Jin, who I will have to talk about on her own. That will be a video. The Ruby Phoenix herself, the Grand Master. But she basically leased a century-long swath of the Sarrazin Crags for a new home for her tapestry people. Basically, people that were evacuated from her demi-plane tapestry. And this was among her largest investments. To kind of open up the story a bit, there are people within her tapestry and her demi-plane that didn't want to be there under her rule anymore, and she basically arranged this for them to leave, and arranged for some local dragons to protect them too, even among that. But yeah, she allowed these people, and they are a culture group now within it, this tapestry people. We'll have to talk about them a little bit here. Shui Jing herself left Bachuan as her reforms and immigration took root. She revealed her nature as an oracle in a letter, which she confessed to disguise her abilities in order to be accepted. Her true identity is actually a mystery. Diplomats from Po Li later informed officials of Bachuan that even the name Shui Jing comes from popular fictional tale. So who was this mysterious oracle that claimed to be mathematicians and led a massive reform in the country? No one knows. But she has helped them. So still in charge, of course, is Grandmother Pei. She's technically still in charge of the council, the Sun Council, but she's really now more of a autocratic leader in name only. She's lost most of her power. So the Sun Chamber, which she's the technical head of, the Council of Bureaucrats, is the leader of this all. You know, her power profile, presence has all waned. She's not the real in charge of the nation. There are rumors that she's left the nation for the monastery of Ziha altogether, so it's unsure if she ever appears before. But with Shui Jing gone and Grandmother Pei minimized, the Sun Chamber bickers. Pei Wei Ye, one of its faction leaders, died of an overdose, revealed some scandalous nature around the successors and kind of stuff. Basically, as it revealed that she was perhaps one of the last surviving childs of Grandfather Pei, not born to Grandmother Pei. Interestingly enough. But now she's a ghost and continues to plot chaos against the council, too. So that's an entirely pleasant thing. There's a ghost haunting the council. And the council bickers amongst themselves. They at least have territories breaking down. There is division amongst different regions, at very least, that maintain some stability in the country. A lot more than it was. Now here, of course, is Hao Jin. Now let's talk about who lives and the people of Bachuan. They're predominantly humans of the Tian Xia ethnicity. Most of its citizens are farmers and fishers along Benshu Bay and the Sea of Ghosts in the north, or miners in the Saracen Crags. We'll talk about all that, because that's important. The Saracen Crags are also inhabited by a growing population of ogres. Though the status of their presence in the years has, since the resentment of the Tasser people of the Crags is unknown. The Tasser people themselves represent many cultures captured in the Haojian tapestry. Some of them so ancient as to no longer exist anywhere in Golarion. So interacting between them and the natives of Bachuan is an ongoing process. Because again, this is the people trapped in the tapestry are a mixed bag of cultures. So they have like a lot of different things. They don't have a generalized culture. These tapestry people. Their interactions are good. They're also cat folk, goblins, kitsune, kobolds, lizard folk, oni, rat folk that all do exist here. If we look at architecture of the cultures here, it's defined by minimalism and uniformity. Simple clay walls are painted in shades of light white-gray, with rounded windows divided into quarters. Floors use slat woods, furniture made of woven bamboo or rattan. Art amongst the tapestry people emphasizes the communal over the individual, with scarce resources is often also intangible in nature. Their song, dance, theatrical performance relies on harmony, coordinated movements, and audience response. A troupe of tapestry people entertainers called the Story Singers have begun touring the countryside. For cuisine, it's known for being extremely spicy heat, which is said to aid in sweating through the nation's dense humidity and high temperatures. Fish is common in any form of meat, shellfish, crustaceans. But despite that prevalence, it's often seen that those staples are often associated with wealth historically, and prohibited a lot more. Again, opening up a lot more lately. Hospitality is prevalent in the tapestry people who live through scarcity by focusing on community and sharing, to the point that they often ask as part of their greetings whether the person's eaten. So that's an interesting part for them. When it comes to drinks, alcohol beverages are rarely brewed. The grain was used for sustenance, the lack of food. So teas brewed from wild grasses and herbs are the national beverage of choice. Licorice grass and bitter melon extract make Bachuan beverages in turns refreshing and potent. As for education? Well, there's a lot of distrust on education because of, this entire thing of these education camps, which were really popular. I don't know. It just kind of makes people a little cautious on this entire thing. So, yeah. And also, the philosophy shamed those who developed magical theories as being inherently corrupted. Hey, this philosophy we've been teaching that goes against magic a lot. So, teachers in education, it's really hard to find teachers in the first place in education back. So now that the reforms of Xinjie have come out, and the autocracy has relaxed, unfortunately things like fashion still retain a lot of its authoritarian past. That were standardized, unisex, color-coded industrial clothing of the same size manufactured by government-owned sewing houses. It's still a lot of that. This template served as the basis for their fashion. And new fabrics, dyes, and prints complementing new territory design now woven into this culture. So basically, they are expanding their fashion, but it has this basic of the authoritarian group behind it. And also now, without religious bans in place, religion is coming back to people. They've been reviving the worship of deities like Hei Feng, Kufushachi, and Kuizang. So some big deities are returning from the region after being banned for so long. But even then, we also still have revolutionaries. Basically, the tyranny has fostered revolutionary groups, such as the Nine Striped Tigers. The Nine Striped Tigers may not be trying to overthrow the government as much anymore, but they've accelerated implementing the reforms in a lot of municipalities by freeing political prisoners, shuttering re-education labor camps. They have a 3-year-long campaign accomplishing more than the Sun Chamber would ever have done, and forged a kind of folk hero fame for them. They've also been seeking contract with other groups like the Firebirds as of 4724 this year for advice on how to address the growing monster infestations. That is still a problem. Monsters, it's a problem. Now let's look to the economy of this place. It defines us a little bit of how work existed in this country. The labor people run strict schedules. Even with the reforms, there's still a schedule in place. In most places, it begins at dawn. After a short break at noon, work continues until sunset, or an afternoon storm. In cities and townships, work run on an 8-shift schedule, signaled by 4 bells. Each type of business operates on different complementary shifts that were once rigidly enforced, but actually now there's some experimentation. Nationwide curfew was once enforced, and though the curfew is gone, it's largely respected out of safety. So it's sort of like you don't have the curfew anymore, but people just don't think about it. Workers operate on an official calendar that historically requires 12 work days followed by 2 days of rest. Though municipalities alternate to 6 days and then 1 day of rest, we're alternating weeks of 12 and 6 work days, resulting in mixed opinions, but increased productivity among labor workers. So they're experimenting with increasing labor and rest periods and stuff like that. Now when it comes down to, remember I mentioned, farmers and fishermen are the most population. The regimented schedules of a lot of the other workers were always incompatible with agriculture and fishing. The planned schedules no more than a day advance. Hey, it turns out these jobs which require different kinds of work, different kind of schedules, don't go to these registers. As such, farmers and fishermen were the only groups with flexibility that had leisure time. And much of Bachuan's native art, which still exists, comes from fishermen and fisherfolk. And artists gravitated to these lines of work because then it would give them extra time, the actual extra time needed to create. So if you wanted to be if you were an artist at heart, you wanted to paint, you go be a fisherman or a farmer because then you find some time in your life to do those things. The weather patterns of Bachuan are recorded and predicted in the wild Bachuan's Wind Guide, an almanac that tracks rainfall, flooding, planting times, and creature migrations. And dried specimens of stringy fine spans in eastern shores of Naitong Bay are actually valued in markets as magical components and equated by law as precious metals. The tapestry people, who are now new and influxed into this, they're relatively unpredictable and work as and when it benefits them. Some never truly stop. 1 out of 5 tapestry shops never closes. 1 out of 10 operate only in nighttime. And some Bakugan locals believe the tapestry people's Oni hour draws monsters. Hey, there's a monster problem. Others take advantage of the entertainment, which results in productivity loss and various things. So there's proposals to regulate when entertainment can occur, but they've failed in the Sun Chamber, mostly because they don't want to offend Hao Jin, the incredibly powerful spellcaster that, is the person that kind of put these people in place. We don't want to piss off the person, the, level 20 sorcerer Archmage 9. Seems like a terrible idea. Here's a picture of the country. Hey, look at that! I got a picture of it. So, it's located on Tianxi's eastern coast, sharing a great peninsula with Huanggang to the south. The nation of Poli is located in the mainland to the west, and I mentioned Poli. And its eastern reach is mainly flatland, while the Cezanne Crags and the foothills and ravines take up the western third. Eastern flatland naturally form temporary streams and reservoirs during the rainy season, that the tapestry people suggest are engineered. The western crags are rich in easily mined gemstones and minerals. Rocky areas have experienced an increase in Fumale geysers and hot springs, alongside the rise of Oni ogre sightings, allegedly linked to nearby underworld dragons. The Zhao River forms a border with Huaga to the south, and is the subject of recently treaty as the first step of following the cold relations with Bachuan. So, they have been working to fix their relationships with their southern neighbor, where the grandmother Pei was trying to conquer them Cold War style. Ancient texts said that Bachuan was once linked to Tian Xia by a large land bridge broken up by earthfall, remnants which became partly exposed during double full moons. Its climate features about 150 days of rain per year, mostly concentrated in late spring and early summer. Temperatures average around 95 degrees Fahrenheit if you are in the Americas in the summer, and 72 degrees in the winter, with autumnal hurricanes and snowless winters. Yeah, let's talk cities. So, there are 5 cities we know some basic things about. Baifin, which is a small town, serves as a central gathering place for various of small groups of this tapestry people communities within the citizen crowds. Day-to-day running of the town is collectively about 100 families during this time period. There is Gobe, a metropolis. That's a city in the region. We know its name. We don't know a lot about it, other than it is a metropolis. And basically, as the Dragon Empire Gazetteers, was approximately 39,000 people. Li Daolun was another metropolis with 27,000 people, another city in the nation. Naijing, a large city with about 11,000 people. Again, these are ones that we know very little. Of course, we do know a little bit about the capital, which is another metropolis with nearly 51,000 people. It's a large, nearly empty city in the area, built on the northern shore of Naikang Bay. Established by Grandfather Pei, it was designed to hold up to 200,000 inhabitants. However, it only has 50,000. As following Grandfather Pei's command and relocate there, basically, Grandfather Pei ordered people to relocate there in 7211, but very few did. Many of the city's buildings are overrun with monsters, magical plants, and squatters, despite the influx of residents and investment. So yeah, it's a city built and designed for 200,000 people with 50,000 people. It's got problems. Of course, Sun Council Chamber buildings housing the Sun Chamber is here, as blocked away from the Pei estates where Grandmother Pei purportedly lives still. The Southern Dock Warehouse has been overrun by Sea Drake, Ilcelius, and a tribe of Grindylows, who face unusual legal case and are seeking representations to defend themselves. Yeah, Sea Drakes and Grindylows have taken over and are going legality to make themselves legally in this basically dock area of the warehouse. Interesting things going on here in Bachuan. So, but unfortunately, that's all we really know about the cities in this case. But there's a good look at Bachuan. There could be more to look at in the nation, but I think we have a very good view of how it is. It had this kind of very idealistic idea in the Pei philosophy that was made for everybody being treated equal, everybody being equal, everybody prospering equal. A very good idea, but its implementation was never correct. You can see that. Grandfather Pei didn't really push it forward. And yes, there was a lot of negativity and bad things happening, autocracy happening in the country. It just got worse when he passed. And I think that's the unfortunate thing. His successor, his young wife, took things in a dark turn. Now, the country's on an upturn. Sure, the autocratic council at heart, the Sun Council, it's doing, the Sun Chamber, it's doing a better job, but they're fighting amongst themselves and trying to hold on to what little power they have and their different regions and maintaining the country. The reforms at its heart of the country, though, are leading it to a new direction. The nation's opening up, it's becoming a much happier, lively place. A nation that's connecting with the rest of the world again. Having gone through a lot. Their origins and the suffering they went through under, of course, the Imperial Lung Wa is seen in a lot of their actions. The juxtapositions they did. They reacted. I think that's going to be something that we're going to see with a lot of successor states. Reactionary tales about what happened after the fall. In this case, it was a very interesting, extreme direction. One that had the best at heart for the people, but just didn't work. We'll see how Bachuan evolves in the future, but at least they're on a path that's better for its people. That's all it is. But we'll leave that there and say thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed diving into a Bachuan nation in Tian Xia. Now that I have a copy of the Tian Xia World Guide, I'm going to be doing a lot more of Tian Xia countries because I find them very interesting, really great stories in this entire thing. And I might even do a video on things like the old empires, like Imperial Lung Wa, know where it came from, what it did in its history. I'll probably do that soon. But remember to check out all of my stuff, whether it's going live over on Twitch where I stream either games, hanging out, tabletop stuff like this, or put stuff over on YouTube. That's all my tabletop stuff. My schedule for both of these is on my social medias on my YouTube. I put it up weekly. That's my Discord, my Blue Sky, my Twitter /X, and post over to the YouTube. The YouTube schedule is a lot more exact than my Twitch schedule. That one I'm working on getting a little bit more exact. I'm developing my schedule as we go and stuff like that. And life stuff and the live things is still a little bit up in the air. So I hope you do that. Hey, if you haven't yet, remember to do that like and subscribe and ring the bell. What do you think about you? Have you had any adventures here? Or how do you think you would have adventures here? Whether you're running it, or if your players would here, what kind of adventures do you think you could have? There is some old ruins and things like that that probably could be found in the nation too. Old histories, magics. It's an interesting region that has a complex history to it. Anyway, alright, I'm going to get going. Until the next time we chat about this or something else, I bid you all out there a deep and wonderful farewell.